welcome. My name is Christina Winstead, and I'm joined with...
This is Yokiko from the College Bound program.
And we're from the Washington Student Achievement Council. We're going to talk to you guys about some financial aid updates today, as well as some information about our Washington College Grant. So before we get started, we'll make sure you guys are aware of all the awesome webinars that are coming up. We have the next one, December 4th, for the high school and beyond plan updates, which I'm signing up for as well.
And graduation pathways.
And graduation pathways, which we're very excited about. February 5th, we'll be talking about National School Counselors Week resources, and May 6th, there'll be a transition, supporting students through transition. So you have a lot of really cool opportunities here. I'm from the Washington Student Achievement Council, and we have a really cool mission to advance educational opportunities and attainment in Washington State. And we do this through policies and programs, and I just feel very fortunate to get to do this work and be able to partner with you guys in serving students. Of course, I always want to make sure we have common definitions for financial aid. So when we're talking about financial aid, we are talking about it as more of an umbrella, any type of support that financially supports students so they can pursue their post-secondary pathways. This can come from loans, grants, scholarships, a whole wide variety. We also will talk about College Bound a little bit, and that's the early commitment of state financial aid to students. So that's the program they sign up for in middle school, and then for seniors this year, this is where that benefit comes out because they will apply for financial aid, and if they meet their eligibility requirements, then they will receive College Bound. We will talk about the FAFSA, which is the free application for federal student aid. And we're going to really make sure to hit that word free. So if anyone's paying to apply for financial aid, that is a red flag. We want to make sure that they are applying for free for this application. And the WASFA, which is also free, is the Washington application for state financial aid. We'll talk about the student aid report, the EFC, which is the expected family contribution. And then when we talk about colleges or institutions, we're talking about any post-secondary opportunity, and that ranges from certificates all the way through PhDs. So with that context setting, we want to talk about financial aid. And when we look at it, we're really looking at it as an umbrella that encompasses grants, scholarships, loans, and work study. What I love about grants is students, we will call that, sometimes people will call it free money, but we want to make sure that that expectation is known, that the money is provided, but if the student doesn't meet a satisfactory academic progress, then they may be in an owing status of those funds. So while it's very easy to say, oh, a grant's free money, it's free as long as they meet the requirements of the grant. We don't want students to be surprised if they go into a paying status. So we want to make sure they understand the requirements of those grants. Scholarships, those are merit-based, income-based. I mean, they could be based on if you're left-handed or over 6 feet tall, or if you made a duct tape dress. There's so many amazing scholarships out there. It's true. If you haven't seen the duct tape scholarship, the student has to make a duct tape prom dress and a duct tape tux, and then they submit those. And you would think, it's probably going to look kind of iffy. No, they're some of the most beautiful gowns, and they're made of duct tape. It blows my mind, but there's a scholarship for that. And I feel like there's a lot of scholarship opportunities out there, and we'll talk more about that. We also will talk about loans. As we're working with students, we know the reality that some of our students will have to take loans in this process. And how can we make those the smallest loans possible by utilizing other types of funding? And then we'll talk about work study. And for this can be kind of confusing for students, because when you take the two words work and study and put them together, it sounds like a real bummer to students. They're like, I don't want to do that. That is work and study. But we want to ensure that students understand the opportunities that come from work study. Those of you who've had work study positions in the past know they are amazing jobs and wonderful opportunities to be able to pursue your education and earn some money at the same time. And so we'll talk about those funds as well. So when students are applying for financial aid, we want to make sure that they follow the rule of one. There can be only one application they apply for. They will either apply for the FAFSA or the WASFA. The FAFSA is the free application that students will apply for, typically if they have a social security number, if they are a permanent resident. If they are not a citizen, they will do the WAFSA, and we will assess them to see if they meet state residency requirements. Either way, we want to make sure students apply for one or the other, but I know that there have been some students who think, oh my goodness, if I apply for one, I get this much money. If I apply for two, I'm doubling down. And I just appreciate so much that they're looking for those funds, but we encourage students then to do their one application for the FAFSA or WAFSA and then continue to apply for scholarships. Here are some examples of the FAFSA aid. These are all federal aid programs. So Pell Grant, federal work study, those subsidized and unsubsidized loans, and then parent loans. And I just want to make sure we put this out there, but parent loans do not have a limit. They are based upon income. They do not have a limit. So a parent could take out more than they actually expect. So I actually had a parent on the phone the other day who told me they had $150,000 in parent loans. And they got those loans when they had a different income, but they had lost their job. And they were trying to figure out how they were going to fund their third child to go to school. And the loans were just a huge barrier for the family themselves. So we really want to caution families when they're looking at loans to make sure you think about all the opportunities before taking out parent loans, and making sure that when families are taking out the loans that they understand the repayment guidelines. So for Washington State Aid, we have several opportunities. The Washington College Grant, formerly known as the State Need Grant, we'll talk more about that amazing update. College Bound Scholarship, State Work Study, Passport to Careers for our foster youth and our unaccompanied youth, Washington Opportunity Scholarship, and the Opportunity Grant. These are our Washington Opportunity Pathways. And we also include in there the Washboard. So the Washboard is the online website. It's a warehouse of scholarships. You build a profile and it matches you to the scholarship. So it's a wonderful opportunity to be able to match the scholarships. No longer do you have to go through a scholarship drawer and go through all of them and then figure out which one works for you. You can actually go through the scholarships and then set reminders to be reminded about those scholarships. It is one of the best ways to match to a scholarship that's been vetted. Just as a quick tip, if a person tries to get you to pay money to apply for a scholarship, it's a red flag and is most likely some sort of scam. You do not need to pay for scholarship applications. Scholarships are free. They are trying to give you money. That's the whole point of them. So if there's a scholarship you're applying for that's requiring you to provide payment, I encourage you to reach out to see if that is an actual scholarship and a legitimate scholarship. And you can always reach out to us at WASFA. We'd be happy to do a little research for you. This is our exciting news, the Washington College Grant. You guys, this is a game changer in Washington State. So it's replacing the State Need Grant, but it is way cooler. Not that the State Need Grant wasn't cool, it put me all the way through school, but this is gonna provide more opportunities for students. It has a 2-year phase-in process. So we are in the 2nd year of phase-in process for this year's seniors. So if you're working with seniors this year and they're applying for the 2021 FAFSA or WASFA, which sounds like it's super futuristic, but that's really next year, they are going to have a different funding source. It's a new type of funding calculation. For families of 4 making around $50,000 or less per year, the Washington College Grant will cover full tuition at any in-state public college or university, or provide comparable amount of tuition award for any other education-related costs towards an approved private college or career training program. And then the partial grants are available for families making up to the state's median income. So if a family of 4 makes around $92,000 or less, they're going to get a partial award. And the reason for this being a game changer is there are families out there who had no clue that they would get aid because maybe a previous student in their family didn't get aid because of their income level. And there are families out there who will get aid this year who did not think that they would. And this covers degrees from welding to nursing, English to computer sciences, whether it's 18 months apprenticeship or a 4-year degree, whatever the goal is, this grant will help. There's a 2-year phase-in, so the current students in school right now who applied for the 1920 FAFSA or WASFA, they are seeing the benefits of that, but our upcoming seniors will see the full implementation of this amazing college grant. We are so excited that in Washington we have these opportunities available, and I've already seen families who we've talked about the income levels for financial aid who've had the misconception that they would not get financial aid based upon their income or previous experience, and this year they may get aid, but this is what we have to do. We won't know until a family applies. So students can't tell if they're going to get aid until they apply. So we have to have families apply for this financial aid. It is a huge game changer in Washington State, and we're going to see a lot of people receiving aid who in the past wouldn't have. So we're really excited about it. Why this is so important is because last year, almost 50% of seniors didn't complete a financial aid application, a FAFSA specifically. So we have data to look at here that shows that we had 53.6% of students who successfully processed an application, and 1.9% of students who applied but never were able to complete the application fully because they had errors. And unfortunately, 44.5% of students had no application at all. And so to me, that tells me either that 44.5% of our Washingtonian students are independently wealthy and paying straight cash. That's what I'm hoping. But the reality is we know that that's not the case. And because of the change in the Washington College Grant, there's going to be even more students eligible, and we want to make sure all of them have opportunities. Our whole goal is to make sure they have all the funding that they can get as possible so that they can reduce those loan costs. We want to make sure that this generation does not have a burden of financial debt because of their education. And to do that, they're going to have to look at multiple ways of funding school. This includes financial aid in the form of the FAFSA or WAFSA, including scholarships. We want to utilize all these different things, college bound, to make sure that the students can have as much money for school and the least amount of debt possible. The first step we're going to talk about is the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. Again, I'm going to emphasize free. And I want to make sure that students know this is a free application. You don't have to pay a dime for it. I still get phone calls every year asking, how do I pay for the $80 application? Oh my goodness, if they're saying $80 for an application, please have them contact us. That is not the case. It is free. So students can apply in multiple ways. So this is the main webpage for FAFSA.gov, but there are 3 options. Students can apply on the website, FAFSA.gov. They can use their phone through the FAFSA app, and then there's a paper FAFSA. Now, the paper FAFSA is not usually the option most students pick, but if you're working with incarcerated youth, this is the best option because of lack of access to internet. So if you need copies of the paper FAFSA because you're working with incarcerated youth, please feel free to reach out to me. I actually have kits for incarcerated youth so that they have access to all their financial aid opportunities and post-secondary opportunities as well. So there are 3 options. We encourage students, the website is wonderful. The app, if you're comfortable with using your phone, may be a good option as well. And we're going to kind of go through a couple hints and tips to help you get started. Number 1, one of our most common errors is completing the wrong financial aid year. If you are working with seniors, the high school class of 2020 will be completing a 2021 FAFSA. They will be using 2018 taxes. No, a lot of numbers there, but just to recap, 2021 FAFSA. If they do the 1920 FAFSA, they are applying for financial aid for this moment right now. And we know that they are in high school right now. If they accidentally complete the 1920 FAFSA and you're going through your data and see they haven't applied, even though you know they applied, that's what I kind of call the practice FAFSA. Well, you got to try it out. And you'll have the students go in and renew their FAFSA from the 1920 to the 2021. It'll import information there so that it's an easier process. But I always tell students, this is a learning experience. You tried it out once, now we're going to do the real one. So for work study, another tip is that I've found that there are some colleges that when a student selects they don't know if they want to be considered for work study, they are not considering them. We want to make sure that students know about these opportunities. It's a wonderful, work study is what fostered my love for higher ed. I want students to see all these opportunities out there. Also, it was the first time where I was able to be an employee who was supported by my employer in my post-secondary goals. And so I want to make sure that students, if they can get that opportunity, that they have it available to them. We encourage students then to select yes if they're interested and can be considered for work study. If they don't want to pursue work study and they get awarded it, they can always decline that award. But we want to make sure that opportunity is available to them. The FAFSA app. The My Student Aid mobile app is a new tool as of last year from the Department of Education. It is an app that you're going to need to download on your phone. It's available through Android. It's available through iPhones. If you have previously downloaded the My Student Aid app, you will need to update the app in order to see the 2021 FAFSA. I did not realize that, so this morning I was like, wait, I see the 1920, but not the 2021. I had to go back in, update the whole application, and then the 2021 application showed up. So if you're having problems seeing the 2021 application, go back in and do an update on your phone, and it should show up. Applicants will need to select their role. So they'll have to just say if they're the parent, the student, or if they're a preparer, which is very rare. I know students will see this and say, well, I'm preparing this, I'm a preparer. No, unfortunately, a preparer is someone they pay to do this work and they have a license number. If the student is applying, they're gonna pick student. If the parent is applying, they'll pick parent. The biggest challenge is 2 people can't be in the application at the same time. So I've had families say, hey, I'll get on one phone and you get on the other phone and we'll be done in half the time. That's genius, but unfortunately the app will only let one person in at a time. So the student typically will go in and then they will finish their portion of the application. The parent can then open up the application on their side, or the parent can go into the website and do it on the website, but they can't be in the application at the same time. If they're using the My Student Aid mobile app, they will not be able to create their FSA ID in the app. They're going to have to go to the mobile-friendly FAFSA website to have that done. The FSA ID is the first step to applying for financial aid. It is basically you signing up and saying, I'm getting my username and this is how I'm going to sign my application. So if you're in a family that has mixed documentation and your parents don't have a social security number, they will not be able to create an FSA ID, but that's okay because they can sign the paper FAFSA. That's one of the limitations, unfortunately, with the FSA ID. When a student goes in, they'll enter in their information. Some of this information is going to import directly from that FSA ID. So when you create that FSA ID, here's the biggest thing for students. Take your time. It is not a race to complete the FSA ID. We want to make sure that it is accurate. If you don't know what your social security number is, that's fine. Wait to get the card and take a look at it. You don't know how your name is on the card? Take a break. Get your card and look at it and see how it's listed. The whole important thing is if you don't know the information, please don't make it up. I had an entire lab of seniors decide to fake social security numbers because they didn't have them with them. So I walk into the lab, they're all doing their FSA IDs, and I'm like, oh, look, all these amazing students, and they're working so hard. And then I hear, just make it up. And I thought, oh gosh, we're doing federal forms. What are we making up? So I was like, hi, you guys. What are we making up over here? Well, I don't know what the social security number is, so I'm just going to make it up. And they all did it. And it took half a day to detach the social security numbers from the names. This is a federal form. This is their first time typically completing a federal form, so they just want to take their time. Also, there could be a misconception with students that when they complete the FSA ID, some of them will think they have completed the FAFSA. So I've had students call me and say, Miss Winstead, I don't know what you're talking about. I finished the application in 10 minutes. And I thought, I am out of a job. And then I went, so you submitted the application? What did it look like? Yeah, I just got my number and my name and like, oh, no, you just did the first step. Now we need to complete the application. We encourage students their junior year to do their FSA ID as their first step towards applying for financial aid. If a parent is going to sign a digital application, they can sign with an FSA ID as well. So the student and the parent will both want to get that. On the FAFSA app, you can actually sign with your finger in addition to your FSA ID. So this is just verifying that you can sign right there and then you hit submit. So it's one additional step. Major 2021 FAFSA changes. The 2018 tax form was the first year that we had tax changes. So there are some changes to a few FAFSA questions. And so it looks a little different than it did last year when it comes to a couple of the questions in the order that they're in. I will have a FAFSA-WSAC line by line on our website starting next week where you guys will be able to see those changes slide by slide. I go through every single screen. I know it can be a little bit tedious, but I encourage you, if you're one of our 12th year sites, I sent you popcorn. Pop that popcorn, sit down, and go through all the amazingness that is the FAFSA-WSAC line by line. But at least you'll have everything you need to know to be able to help students. The student aid report will be available on the My Student mobile app. It wasn't last year, but this year they will get a digital SAR, which is wonderful because it helps them see their EFC. It helps them understand what aid is available to them ahead of time. So when students are applying to schools, they can think big and know what's there available for them. I know when we're working with the data retrieval tool, which some of you who don't know what the data retrieval tool is, it is a tool for people to be able to import their IRS information into the FAFSA. They are working with the IRS right now to make it mobile responsive. We know that when you go from the FAFSA into the data retrieval tool, it's a whole different looking website and it won't reformat to your phones or tablets and it can be kind of challenging. They are working on it. We're hoping to see it. I'm crossing my fingers for this year, but please know that it's something they are aware of and they are working on. And then make sure that when students are on the mobile app to update their mobile app and make sure that they're selecting the correct FAFSA year in the mobile app. They are pretty close together on the mobile app. So like, I know my finger's a little bit bigger, so I accidentally picked the wrong year. Totally happens, but they want to make sure they're taking their time. The line by line is going to be on WASFA's Ready, Set, Grad page. It will also be pushed out to you if you have one of those counselor keys that we gave out, the black keys. It'll be pushed out on there as well. And if you can't find it on there, just email me. I'm happy to send it to you. So the data retrieval tool, like I said before, it allows for that direct electronic transfer of tax information right into the FAFSA. What helps with this is it reduces the amount of errors that students have when putting in tax information. It also can reduce your chances of being selected for verification. That's where they verify your information through a separate process after you've submitted a financial aid application. When working with students, this year, the verification guidances that were last year, where you could use your actual tax form versus your tax transcript, they are not continuing those. So if you have students selected for verification, this year they're going to have to get tax transcripts again. One way to help with that is to just order the tax transcripts now. So if families, as they file their taxes, have them immediately order that tax transcript and have it put it in their folder with their taxes. That way, it's just sitting there, and if they're selected for verification, they're not worried about the time it takes for the IRS to process those requests. We do know that when the verification requests go out, the IRS gets flooded with those requests, and it can take a long time for these to be requested. Also, students can request them by online, but not all students will meet the criteria to get an online tax transcript. Some will have to request by mail and even by phone. So this is a whole new process for some students. We want to make sure we give them plenty of time to receive the information they need to go through the verification process. When you import that information, that data is going to be masked. And what that means is you're not going to be able to see any of the income on the FAFSA, it's just going to say transferred from IRS. Where this can be challenging is when you have a family that has two incomes. It's going to ask you in the FAFSA, what is the split of incomes? How much did parent one make? How much did parent two make? It will not show you the splits on the data retrieval tool. You need to have your taxes to be able to determine that. So I encourage families to bring taxes with them. And we have some resources at the end of this presentation that you can use to send to families to prepare them for doing financial aid and getting all those materials together. I will try to keep you guys updated on any outages I hear about. They usually put them on their website. They're in very small print on the very bottom of the page, and I'll try to put those out as I hear about them. I encourage you, if you're having an event and are concerned about how this might impact your financial aid event, please feel free to contact me. It's just going to be that students are going to have to put in information manually, which means they'll definitely have to have their taxes with them. Another big question we get is, who's my parent for the FAFSA? So this can be a very challenging and triggering question for students because we're talking about very personal issues. So who their parent may be and who they identify as their parent may be different than who the parent is for FAFSA. So the parent for the FAFSA, we have a lovely little flow chart, and I encourage you, when you're having a financial aid night, these are right on federal student aid, as well as I put them in your keys this year. And if you have the silver keys from the previous year, I threw them on there as well. I encourage you, print these up and put them at the computer stations and let families determine themselves who the parent is. A big one that was a change last year is if the family is unmarried or separated or divorced and the parents are still living together, both parents, they're going to want both parents' income, even though they are divorced, because they are living under the same roof. If a family is divorced, separated, or not living together, it's going to be the parent you live with the most. So you want to figure out which parent, where you're spending the nights the most. If you're spending a equal split of time, even though there's 365 days in a year, we know that technically there is one place you're going to be more than another. It's going to then go down to who is providing more financial support. So we encourage you to determine where the student lives the most, and that's going to be the parent for FAFSA purposes. It may not be the parent that has claimed them on taxes. That doesn't matter. It matters where they live the most, which can be very confusing, but we encourage you. That's why I said having these on the tables, and then that way if they need clarifying, they can always come to you, but then they can determine themselves without having to talk about their family status. Other common mistakes, the legal information. So this is why we say slow down and enter it legally. I know students, also for this, like students may be changing their names legally or their gender markers. And unfortunately, when it comes to the FAFSA application, they are going to be looking at current right now as of this moment. So if a legal name change hasn't gone through, they're going to put their current legal name, and then as soon as that name change comes in, go ahead and switch it on the FAFSA or the WASFA and switch it with your admissions officers. They want to make sure that they are identifying you correctly and the way that you want to be identified. So I encourage you, that may be an extra step, but we want to make sure we support you in it. Income. So students will accidentally put their parents' income as their own. It happens all the time. So I have students that made like $60,000 this year, and I'm thinking, wow, where was I in high school? Because I was like making pretzel money. That's a big red flag when you see a double income. Putting their tax information in. So the tax information, when it comes to their adjusted gross income and taxes paid, students will put the adjusted gross income and then say like, oh, my family made $63,000 and we paid $63,000 in taxes, because they don't know the difference between the two, and why should they? They've never done taxes before. So they'll put it in and all of a sudden it doubles, like it throws a red flag and says, you can't pay the amount of taxes that you earned, and then it creates an error. Student marital status. It'll ask, what is your marital status? And students will tell me, okay, I'm not married, but I'm dating someone. And I'm like, that's great, congratulations. But you're single. But I'm not single, I'm dating someone. I totally understand. But unless you put a ring on it, you need to put single down. And they get real flustered about that. So if they're not married, it has to be single, even if they're seeing somebody. It's just very cute, and they get a little flustered about it. But if they're single, they're single. If they're married, they're married. But unless they're married, they're gonna put single. And it does for selective service. So it's going to then, if they select male, it's going to open up a question about selective service and if you've registered for it, and it's going to offer to register you if you haven't. The incorrect FAFSA year is the biggest error that I see. Those are the ones that do the wrong year FAFSA, or sometimes put the wrong year taxes in, which is very challenging. And then the number of students in their household that are in college. If a family has other dependents in college, they need to make sure they're entering that into the form, because it does change their funding formula. When you're working with students, of course, we always want to consult financial aid experts if there are challenging situations. So always consult a financial aid expert if the student has their own children or their own dependents. If there's an informal living arrangement, especially one that hasn't been determined through a McKinney-Vento process, we want to make sure that if they're homeless or at risk of being homeless, that they're being supported in the independent status that they will most likely apply for. And then for those who have parents who refuse to provide information, the FAFSA will say when they select I'm not providing parent information, it will tell them some very harsh realities of the fact that they will only be eligible for unsubsidized loans. They have to read through that and then click yes that they're eligible for unsubsidized loans. But if there's a reason that they are not in contact with their parents or the reason that their parents are not providing information, there's a special circumstance there, there's another box they can check that says, I'm not providing information because I have a special circumstance. I encourage them, if they do have a special circumstance, to check that one as opposed to just unsubsidized loans, because it'll prompt the financial aid office to ask more questions to make sure that they are getting the right aid package. And then sometimes consult financial experts if you're working with foster youth or unaccompanied minors or students in a legal guardianship. So students who are in a legal guardianship will apply as independent. And so some of these can be, on paper, looks challenging, but actually our independent applications are the easiest to do because we are not looking for parent information, just student information. If you are struggling with working with students on that process, please feel free to reach out to the 12th Year Campaign. Our contact information will be at the end here, and we are happy to support you in this work. Definitely when to contact financial aid office, especially after the award letter has been received, is that the family financial circumstances have changed. If they've lost a family member, if if there's a loss of employment, they will maybe be able to do what's called a professional judgment and adjust the income level to what it actually is. If a family tells you, we got this award letter and we just can't afford to go, but this is the right fit for our student, I would encourage you to reach out to a financial aid officer to see if there's any other funding opportunities. They don't know a student needs money and that it's not affordable until they reach out, but there may be scholarships or other funding opportunities out there. I know that I couldn't afford a couple quarters on my bachelor's, and I went to the financial aid office, and all of a sudden I started getting emails about all these scholarships. And what I didn't know was they were sending me the scholarships that definitely were not being awarded because there was no one applying to them. And all of a sudden I got a full ride for my last year, and I thought, oh, I did a scholarship, that's so awesome. But what I didn't realize is the financial aid officers heard my story and they started looking for them specifically to find one for me. So they don't know what they don't know, but if you reach out to them, they might be able to help you with something. And yes, sometimes it's going to be hard to get through on the phone to a financial aid officer. There's a lot of students and a very few of them, but be persistent. They are there to help. Also, it's great to get to know your financial aid officers because they're going to be the ones helping you through the next year of financial aid applications and processes at your campus. If they're going to ask them for the FAFSA, it's going to be your gender assigned at birth, whatever's on the birth certificate. I know in Washington, as of the 16th of November, we will have the gender of X, which is going to be I don't identify with either, which is I'm very excited about. And I've already sent them an email this morning of like, hey, this is what we've got going on here. How are you going to address this in the application? So I'm waiting to hear back. We want them to list what's on their birth certificate, so I'm hoping that they'll be able to update it soon. But I think we were one of the first states to do that, so we are very excited. When you're applying for admissions, especially the in-state schools, they know that this is something that is happening very soon here, and they will have that on their applications. Verifications. Students may be selected for verification, and what verification is when they are asking for additional documents from the financial aid office or the federal side to verify the accuracy of information. People can be selected randomly for verification. They can be selected because of errors. It's a wide variety of reasons. We just know that a lot of students are typically around a third, sometimes higher than that. To support students in this work, we encourage you to help them order their IRS tax transcripts. Sometimes you can go back into the FAFSA and do the data retrieval tool after the fact, and that sometimes will help with reducing the verifications. The biggest thing about verification is this. If you get selected for verification or a student gets selected for verification, please do not wait or crumple their letter into their backpack and never speak of it again. There are deadlines for verification. I had a student come into my office one time who said, I just got this letter, what does it mean? And they tossed it on my desk. And I went, oh man, I'm pretty psychic then because it looks like a pretty thick envelope. And then I looked at the postmark and it was from 6 weeks prior. I thought, ruh-roh. And I tried to give the student the benefit of the doubt. I thought, you know what? They opened up the letter. They read it and didn't understand what they were asking for. They sealed it back up. The rain sealed the seal. And then they are just here and they're asking for help. But unfortunately, no. The student never opened the letter. And when I opened it, it said, you've been selected for verification. You have 4 weeks to complete this process or your aid will be delayed. And the student didn't complete those 4 weeks and they had to sit out for a quarter. They have to be timely when they're getting these materials. When financial aid offices send you, especially a hard copy letter, it's not because they want to be pen pals. I mean, they love you, but they're not there to be pen pals, but they're requesting typically something from you. So that's everything on the FAFSA. Now we're going to talk about the WAFSA. So the WAFSA opened October 1st, just like the FAFSA. The WAFSA is our Washington State application for aid. It's a pretty simple process. So when you go to, so first we'll look at our privacy statement, because we know that data security is very important. The families we are working with who are applying for this application have sensitive information, sensitive needs. We want to make sure that we are working with these students and making sure that we're very mindful of the environment right now. When students don't know which application to do, they're like, I don't know if I should do the FAFSA or the WAFSA. That's okay. They can go straight to the FAFSA or the WAFSA, and there's a questionnaire that will walk them through to see what application they actually qualify for. So if you're having a financial aid night at your school, I encourage you, you can always just put all your computers on the WAFSA and they can all do the assessment to see what application. That way you're not asking students to identify their status in front of their peers. Another way is on here, if they've qualified for the FAFSA, it's gonna pop them out right to the FAFSA. So then they just click on it. So it's pretty simple. It's gonna ask them some questions about citizenship. If they answer these, typically it means that they are qualified for the FAFSA, and it'll push them to you are FAFSA eligible. Click here to apply and it takes them to the web page. It's going to ask if they have a social security number, if they have expired or active DACA status, just kind of different status questions. It's going to ask if they've lived in Washington State for at least 1 year prior to college enrollment. It's going to ask if they've applied for the free application. We had to put that in there because, again, students want to double down. Totally understand that. If they click this, it says, congratulations, you already completed an application. Let's look for scholarships. And then it'll ask if they've met all House Bill 1079 residency requirements before entering college. And based on the answers, typically students then will go right into the WASFA eligible, and they click there and it'll start the application. So again, they re-inform the students one more time. Did you complete a FAFSA? Or have you already done the WAFSA this year? Because some students will think I have to do it every quarter. I've heard that this year, which is very interesting. One application per year. We know it's hard just to get that one application in per year. I can't imagine what it would look like if you had to do one a quarter. Just one a year. So ask them again, did you do it this year? If they say yes, congratulations, let's look for scholarships. No, let's get this done. So it takes them to the home screen, which is going to walk students through icons of their status of their application. Again, if they are a senior this year, the class of 2020, they're going to complete the 2021 WAFSA. So they're going to click the bottom box, and they'll start with the Start an Application icon on the right over here underneath Actions. If they're homeless, they're going to have a Make an Evento determination, and it's going to be one of the questions they answer in dependency, and then it will not ask them for parent information. Sometimes it'll say, would you like to provide parent information? They can check no, there's no punitive response. So I had a student that was in a guardianship that legally could not contact their parents. It was not safe for them. And so unfortunately they thought that they had to provide. So then all of a sudden the student tried and it became very challenging. So if they are asked, they want to make sure they read very carefully on there. It'll say, you are required to provide parent information, or would you like to? If it says, would you like to, they can always select no. And the nice thing is it'll happen all in the dependency determination. Most students will be considered dependent. And so with dependent status, it's students who are typically 24, like 24 is that magic age when you get financial aid as an independent student, but if they're under 24, they're typically gonna be considered dependent. And I know students will come to me and say, hey, I'm doing my own laundry, I'm living in a dorm, I am super independent. Yes, you are super independent, but you are not super independent through FAFSA status. Financial aid status, you are still dependent. And I know that it hurts students to hear that because they are in a developmental stage right now where they are asserting their independence. And now we're saying, nope, you're dependent till you're 24. We want to make sure to acknowledge, like, yes, you are working towards your independence, but for financial aid funding, unfortunately, you are considered dependent. If they have a permanent resident card, like yes, then they can do the FAFSA. There will be a small number. This year, we had a small number of students that, while they qualified for the FAFSA, decided that they did not want to complete the FAFSA because when you complete the FAFSA and your parent does not have a social security number, you have to enter zeros in. And so we had some students, very small amount, that decided that they did not want to apply for the federal side of funding because they didn't want to identify through the zeros, potentially identify their parents as undocumented. And if that's the case, and they want to not apply for federal funding, but apply for state funding, they can do that. Washington will still support them in that. And what we're here to do is to provide all the information about financial aid, but we're never here to tell students they have to apply. We want to make sure they have all the information they need about how financial aid can benefit benefit them, but we also know there are risks for some families in this process. And if they decide that they don't want to do it, we want to support them in that decision. If they decide they don't want to do either application, there is a amazing scholarship list of 45 pages of scholarships through the Beyond 1079 conference that are for students who are undocumented. If they do not meet either criteria for applications, I never want to tell students there is no other options. There are always other options, and this other option is that they will apply for scholarships. You can schedule applying for scholarships at the same time that students are applying for financial aid and make it the same activities. If you are looking for that list, they are on your flash drive. They're also on the website, and then the conference is this weekend. I'll get the brand new list on Saturday. I'll scan it in on Sunday, and it should be on the keys on Monday. They can email, like our contact information is on here. You guys can always email me. I'll send you a key. If you didn't get one at the Wisher Tour or couldn't go, we'd be happy to send you one. And those keys are updatable. So when you plug it in, it tells you you have updates and we can push new files out to you. So as we create resources, you will have access to those. So you can see here we have a WASFA application that's been completed by the student. The next step for the student is to invite a parent to sign the application if they're considered dependent. If they're independent, at this point, they're done. Woohoo! If they're considered dependent, they're going to click on the middle icon here that looks like a little person with a plus, and that's how they're going to invite a parent to sign. In their WAFSA, they're going to put a parent's name and their email address in there. It'll then prompt the system to send an invitation to the parent at that email address, an invitation to sign the application. Students need to apply every single year for financial aid, the FAFSA or the WAFSA. Same with scholarships. If they're a non-renewable scholarship, they're going to have to reapply for those too. So we encourage students to apply every year in October. College freshmen, so your seniors that graduated and they're off to school right now, they're starting this process right now. So you may get some phone calls from your previous seniors who are like, oh, financial aid, because you were maybe the last person that helped them with that process. I encourage you, if you're having a financial aid night at your school, invite your former students. If they're still in the area, or maybe they're around, if you do a later event, maybe they're around for the holidays or something, they'd love to come back to school. They also love telling you all the cool things they're doing at college. And so it's a wonderful way to reconnect with students. And it's great for your current seniors to see what the previous year seniors are doing. So I encourage you to invite them to your financial aid nights and help them with their applications. Work study. Just have students consider that opportunity, especially as an employment opportunity for their resumes. And then if there's internships, oh my goodness, have them look at internships. They should not be afraid of their financial aid officers. I know it can be very scary because people think that financial aid sometimes is connected to admissions, and like I've even had students tell me like, I'm afraid to ask questions because what if they don't admit me because I asked a question? No, they want to hear your questions. They desperately want to answer your questions because if you make up the answers, ooh, it's a lot harder to fix stuff. So if you have a question, ask your financial aid officer, get to know them. They are awesome. Apply for other financial aid in the form of scholarships whenever you can. So when I was in college, I did scholarship applications every other weekend. I know that sounds a little excessive, but I did not have the money to pay for school. So every other weekend, I'd treat myself to a giant slice of pizza from Old School, and I'd work on scholarships. And sometimes I'd have friends join me. I encourage parents, have a scholarship night, like a financial aid scholarship night, because here's the thing. Students will not even humble brag about themselves in their essays sometimes. So, but their friends will. They will not even humble brag. Their friends will be like, remember when you did this and you did that and you're awesome? They will remind them all the things they've done. So when they're filling out their scholarship essays, sometimes they don't see all the things that they've done. But if they write their essay and then pass it to their friend and eat a slice of pizza and add things that they think they've missed, all of a sudden you get this really robust application that it not is through the lens of the student, but through the lens of their friends and family as well. So I encourage parents, have a pizza night. Pizza and scholarships is the way to go. I think it's a real great way to get students together. And then I encourage students to look at applying for financial aid as a part-time job. You're trying to get money for school, and there's other ways you can keep your cost of attendance lower. So students can rent textbooks. I know that when I was in school, I emailed my faculty every quarter, can I use a previous edition of your book? And if they said yes, I would start scouring Goodwill. And I would find most of those books at Goodwill. Sometimes I check books out of the library, but I found a lot of ways. My first quarter, I thought I had to buy everything brand new and shiny, and like I wanted to hear the spine crack on every book. And then I found out, man, some of those used textbooks are new. Like I remember I got a used one and I opened up the spine and it cracked, and I went, oh, someone failed that class. But there's all these different ways you can save money when you go to school, and I encourage you to think about ways to keep that student loan debt as low as possible because we do not want this next generation starting out with that. And it's very important for the economy of Washington to be able to have students spend the money that they're earning within the state. Best practices for your financial aid nights. Translated materials are wonderful. We encourage you to provide them, especially for families. The whole process is very confusing, and if you can provide materials in the family's home language, it makes it a lot easier, more accessible, and more friendly. For financial aid nights, see how I'm using the term financial aid nights? We want you to avoid using the term FAFSA nights. I know it sounds cute, FAFSA fun, FAFSA it like has that alliteration, but when we say FAFSA nights, we are excluding WASFA. So then I have students call me and say, hey, when's our WASFA night? And then you have a WASFA night and you've identified every single undocumented student in your school. Like that's well-meaning, but not a real good equity tool. Financial aid nights are inclusive of students who are qualified for FAFSA, WASFA, and students who don't qualify for either. And I encourage you to change your language around that so that it says financial aid. It just makes it a lot easier. Partnering with parents or guardians. So having a parent prep night for financial aid where they do their FSA IDs, where the parents become the knowledge keepers about this process before the students do, has increased sometimes that engagement with the process. Finding identified trusted sources on college campuses. So I encourage students to look at their campuses and their campus supports as they're looking at the admissions process and finding those people on campus. And sometimes it's word of mouth. Sometimes you find someone that is going to support you in different ways, but finding those people on those campuses are very critical. And there are resources on most campuses. You'd be surprised if you go through all the resources and all the clubs and all the different activities. But we want to make sure when students get to campus that they feel safe, that they feel included, and that they feel they belong. And then sharing resources. So sometimes there's misconceptions at schools that they have no undocumented students. Well, we don't have any undocumented students. Spoilers, sometimes undocumented students don't know they're undocumented. I know, I had a student find out at a financial aid event. So another best practice is when you have a financial aid event, if you can have an extra office open where a student can go to process information, it's not always that, you know, they're finding out something like that, but sometimes it's even that we're asking about marital statuses. I had a student whose parents got divorced that week. And when we asked about who's your parent, they broke down in tears. And they did it in front of their peers. And then they felt embarrassed that they were in front of their peers like that. If you have a separate space where they can process things away from their peers, it is wonderful and very supportive. So we encourage you to share resources, United We Dream, Northwest Immigrant Rights Project, and then the Beyond 1079 conference that is in Ellensburg this weekend. If you have students going to that, there's amazing resources. If you have students that don't know about this conference, I encourage you, have them look at the website. It is a wonderful resource for students to be able to go in and find students that from all different schools that have the same interests, who are experiencing the same challenges, and it's such an empowering event. I'm so excited that we're going to go this weekend. This is a lot of work, but how can we help? So we have trainings, and for 12th year, which we'll talk about in a second, we can do some event assistance. I've been doing a lot of virtual assistance this week and in-person assistance where schools can call me when they have challenging questions during their event. We have webinars and materials that you can order. So we have printed postcards, posters, which I'll show you in a second, and then we have electronic resources too. So the 12th year campaign, it's my baby. The 12th year campaign is a combination of the American College Application Campaign, College Goal Washington, that program that used to be called College Goal Sunday, but we found out not a lot of people do financial aid on Sundays. So it's College Goal Washington. You get to pick your own date. And then the FAFSA Completion Initiative, that is the data access where school counselors who have a signed data sharing agreement and non-disclosure agreement can see student-specific data on financial aid on their FAFSAs. They can see if the student's completed with errors, hasn't completed at all, or is missing signatures. If you sign up for the 12th year campaign, there's 3 different models. You can literally just sign up to use resources. You don't have any other commitment. I will send you a survey at the end of the year asking/begging you to let me know what we can do the following year. Specifically, I want to know, like, what languages should we translate materials into? What worked for you? What didn't? Did you have a best practice this year that I can share with people? Because I would love to. And then, of course, that FAFSA completion portal data. If you do not have a signed data sharing agreement at your district, let me know. We will send you one happily so that you can have access to that data because we know it's critical in the success of your seniors. So other resources. So you can apply online For the 12th year campaign, right now we have a list of our public events right online. So if a student misses your school event, they can actually go and hover over any of these icons that tells them where the event is, when the event is, the actual location of where on campus it's going to be, and then it has a list of all the resources and then everything they need to bring with them to be able to attend the event and complete their application. And then you can see some of the resources that we have. So for 12th year sites, you can order English and Spanish copies of College Knowledge. This is a resource that is digital as well in 5 languages. It comes in English, Spanish, Russian, Vietnamese, and Somali. And this is a book that walks them freshman through senior year through college going activities. And it's amazing. It has all these different chapters on college bound, on funding school, on picking a college or post-secondary path. It's really cool. And so we have printed copies and you can order those for your students. Another partnership resource is if you're working with youth in care or unaccompanied youth, we have a trifold for fostering college knowledge, and it tells students grade 6 through 12 all the opportunities available to them and what they should be doing to get ready for school. And so it's a great resource. And if you are working with foster youth or know someone who's working with foster youth, we're happy to send them out to you. Postcards. So these postcards say you can't get financial aid if you don't apply. Doesn't get more to the point than that. And so they also come in 5 languages as well. They are all printed. You can order as many as you possibly need. I know a school said, well, can we order another 100? You can order another 1,000. As long as you're going to use them, I don't care. They do not do me any good in the office, but they do wonderful good in the hands of students and their families. These postcards have on the back a list of all the things they need to bring with them in order to complete an application at a financial aid event. And then there's a QR code they can scan and they'll tell them where all the events are in the state. And then finally, one new resource, which I'm very excited about, is we have a student loan advocate. So if you have loan questions, and this can be student loan questions for your students, for yourself, for friends, family, we have Stephanie San Pedro who will be able to help you understand the different types of loan, like the public service loan forgiveness program, and help you really think about the decisions of students getting ready to take out a loan. If a student's scared about taking on debt, she's happy to work with students and be able to help advocate. And it's amazing to have this position here. So I encourage you, if you are curious about your own loans or student loans, your student loans, go ahead and contact her. Her email and phone number are on there. And then this is how you can contact us. We are online at readysetgrad.wa.gov. The washboard is our scholarship warehouse, and then wasac.wa.gov. And we're on the tweets and the book of face. We have 2 accounts that you can see some really cool posts on financial aid information. You can even retweet those. They'll have infographics, some really cool stuff there. And that is what we have for financial aid. Thank you guys so much. Do we have any questions up there? Tax changes won't impact the FSA ID. So the FSA ID is, you just need your social security number and to be able to access that, to create your FSA ID. The tax changes, the biggest ones are that the forms have changed. So like the 1040-EZ, the ones that don't exist anymore have been removed. And there are some different changes in the format of the asset questions, like Schedule K1 assets, I believe.
Okay, here's another one. Should undocumented students with a social security card file the FAFSA?
If they have their permanent resident card, that A number card, it's like it starts with an A, then yes, they are eligible to apply for the FAFSA.
And how can we assist our students whose parents are refusing to complete FAFSA but intend on going to a university?
It depends on why they're refusing to help. I know that there is a misconception that they will not get aid, but this new Washington College grant is changing that. And so really it's going to be re-educating families of like, you may not think you're going to get aid, but you may get aid with this new package. And they can go online and see what the income levels are and if what they would, kind of what it looks like. But if they are not providing income information because they haven't filed taxes, which I know is a concern, they can select on the FAFSA gonna file. And so if they haven't filed yet and I had a family that was in an owing status, and even though it's a couple $100, that's a couple $100, which is a lot. And so they're worried that they couldn't apply for financial aid even though they're in a payment plan. They can file and say, I'm gonna file taxes and still do the FAFSA or WASFA.
Okay, and then we have a scenario with my student has a social security number. One parent does have an ITIN number. Would that parent complete an FSA ID, or will they have to print and mail the signature page?
So unfortunately, the ITIN numbers do not work for the FSA ID. They have to have a social security number, so they would have to print the page. So you can order them from the 12th year campaign. You just sign up. So when you sign up for the 12th year campaign, it will automatically have it redirected. So you finish the application, it sends you right to the order form now. And then you can order. It takes I'm going to be very honest, it takes about 7 to 10 days to get the materials out to you. If you have an event that is like, oh my gosh, I just found out about these resources and my event's in 4 days, please email me and let me know that you are needing them sent quicker, and I will try my best. The problem is I'm on the road a little bit, and so sometimes it's harder to get those out, but sometimes I can also drop them off to you when I'm on the road.
Are students able to use their FSA ID to sign the FAFSA on the app this year?
Yes. Yes, they can do it, which is awesome. So they just can't create it on the app, but they can sign it with the app.
And what if a student has a social security number but is not a permanent resident? Should they file FAFSA or FAFSA?
If they have a social security number, then they'll file for the FAFSA, especially if they have, like, if they're from a freely associated state like Marshall Islands, things like that, they'll still apply for FAFSA. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. If you have financial questions, please let us know over at the 12th Year Campaign, and just happy financial aid season.
And then just to sign off with everyone today, this is Kim Reichdahl, the School Counseling Program Supervisor here at OSPI, and thank you so much to our partners at WSAC for being here with you today. Just a couple of quick reminders. One, this session was recorded and will be captioned and ADA'd in the next week or two, and we will post both on the OSPI and the WSAC websites once those are, the process is complete. Those of you who registered through PD Enroller, you'll get a message of when that is ready to go, and the link to those posted and recorded webinars. And then hope you all will be able to join us on December 4th, same time, same day of the week, for our next webinar in this series. And we will be basically walking you all through the updates to the graduation requirements once the State Board of Education has finished all their rules. We hope you can make it. Should have all the details we haven't been able to share as of yet. So thanks again for joining us, and enjoy your October.